y'all, Christi here with Little Salty Homesteader. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am back today with another weekly update. I do apologize for missing last week. So things are quite a bit wilder than they were the last update. So let's go ahead and walk through and see what's going on. Alright, if you've been here for many weekly updates at all, you know the drill is to start over here in the tomato patch. So that's where we're going to kick things off. This back row is the determinate varieties of tomatoes. So once they have set all of their fruits, they will be done. I can rip them out and start prepping this bed for fall garden plants. As you can see, we have lots of little tomatoes starting to appear on all the plants, and look at that. You guys see that? There's a jerk. There is a hornworm right there. If you can see it, I don't know if it's focusing correctly. Anyway, I will need to come handle that here in just a little while. I thought there might be something because I saw some kind of leaf damage right here. So, that makes the fourth one so far this season. And then, let's see, that is the Invincible Paste Tomato. And then we have Jolene in this area. I don't know if it has set any fruits. As you can see, it's kind of wild and unruly and kind of a jungle to get in there. Oh, here we go. Looks like we have a few fruits there. And then moving on down, we have the Thorburns terracotta, which has several fruits. This is all from the same tomato here. And then there's a homestead tomato plant in here somewhere. 1, 2, 3, 4. There should be like a red snapper plant in here somewhere too. It's quite jungly, so without having my map out here to tell me where each plant is planted, I could just give you my best guess. Some other stuff that's happening in this bed, calendula. This one's really lovely. Calendula blooming. We have another one back here. They are different varieties, although they do look similar. We have Thai red chili here. You can see a few of the peppers are starting to grow on there. Oregano is doing really well. We have habanero here, and then we have nasturtium here. This one's one of my favorites because it's variegated and then the flowers are like a deep, beautiful red. Also in this bed, we have red onions. So this half is the topped onions, and then this half is the left to their own devices onions. They're growing really well. I have not been out here to top them in a couple of weeks. At this point, I'm just letting them grow since I missed a week. I was out of town. So we shall see how these turn out, but they look pretty good. These are going to be a few weeks behind the yellow onions in the other bed, which I'll show you here in just a minute, and you'll see why I say that, because the yellow onions definitely have a lot of bulb growth. We also have cayennes in here, and then we have the buena mulata, which I want to show you guys how prolific these plants are, because this is why I grow them every year. This is one plant. This is one plant, and it's pretty insane. I have 3 plants in here total, and then I have 2 in the green stock on the patio. All 3 in this bed are just going bananas, or peppers. So you can see there, we have more oregano. Chervil is doing pretty well. Other than that hornworm, the tomatoes look really good over here. I do need to come through and prune again. I pruned on Monday, but you know, at this point in the growing season, you just have to prune every other day, it feels like. So this nasturtium, I can't remember what variety it is. They're kind of like a cream color, but it's a trailing variety, so it's kind of vining across the ground, which is really cool. It really fills in the walkway, makes it a little wild to get down, but it's really lovely. As the temperatures continue to heat up, these nasturtiums, all of them will die out. They are not a heat-friendly plant. These are definitely like early spring for North Texas. The same thing with the calendula. It doesn't really like the heat. I probably could have started it earlier. That way I could have had more blooms before it got too hot. But that is a lesson I will need to remember for next year. Here's another calendula about to bloom. All right, this middle bed here, it has the indeterminate varieties of slicers and paste tomatoes. So these two plants on the end that are looking kind of crunchy are the Darth Mater tomatoes. And let me kind of show you what they look like. They almost look like Romas with the way that they are shaped, but they are an indeterminate variety, which is why they're not planted in this back bed over here. Other stuff that is happening within this space, we have parsley here. We have some parsley that has bolted. I'm just letting it happen. If the seeds fall and I get volunteer parsley, that's even better. What I wanted to show you from this side before I walk around to the other side is the yellow onions. You can see the bulb size on these is substantially larger than the bulb size on the red onions. This half of this bed is where I was spooning around the onions, which essentially means that I go around the bulb with my finger and kind of move the soil away. Then the other half is the half that has been left alone. I wanted kind of control sections in each bed so that we would have something to measure against. But let me walk around to the other side and we can kind of take a look at everything else in this bed. So before I do, look at that. This is super cool. I'm very amused by the fact that I grew onions. This is another trailing variety of nasturtium. So you can see how it's just kind of all the way out into the walkway. It just continues to come down. If it were on a trellis, it would climb up the trellis and then you would kind of get this really beautiful cascade of flowers. But it's just cascading through the walkway instead, which is perfectly fine by me. So we'll continue from this side of the bed. So this plant right here, this is a Wagner blue-green tomato. This is an heirloom variety. This is the first time that I'm growing it, but it does have several tomatoes on it. So that's really cool because sometimes with the heirlooms, they're not super productive, but it looks like this one is gonna be a fruitful little plant here. And then this one is Black Beauty, and I wasn't successful in growing it last year because I don't know why, but this one is my favorite out of all of the heirloom varieties of tomatoes. It's really beautiful and it tastes absolutely phenomenal. My second favorite is that Barebones terracotta back there. So I'm really happy that I have both this year with fruit. So we have some there, and we had some up here somewhere, maybe along here. Yeah, here we go. Here's some more. So yay for that. The first year that I was successful in growing it was the year that I dealt with rodents really bad. So they got more of them than I did. And that was whenever I chose violence. So we haven't had an issue since. But very excited about this. Again, I do need to come back out and prune some more because, you know, we have some ugly leaves, but that happens with tomatoes, especially here in North Texas. Along the fronts, we have spicy peppers, not as hot as the cayennes and the habanero and stuff, but this bed has jalapenos and then serranos down there. You can see though that these onions, they're all kind of laying down now, and I don't know, like this one, the greens are completely fallen over. So this one's almost ready. What I'm waiting for is for the leaves to kind of turn more yellow than they are. Like you can see them kind of yellowing here. I want like 90% of the leaves to be yellow before I harvest all these onions, and then we'll weigh them and see if, you know, the spooning experiment was fruitful or if it was just something fun to try. But you can see though, regardless, we are having a successful onion year, which is pretty spectacular. I was reading yesterday on the harvesting, you don't want to water them for like 7 days before you harvest. and they were watered Tuesday, not by me. The irrigation ran and watered them for me. So the soonest I'll be able to harvest them, if they're ready, is next Tuesday, if we don't get rain over the weekend. If we get rain, then of course that puts it off a little while longer. Hopefully they don't rot in place. I'm just a little worried about the weather, but we'll see what happens. You can see we have lots of flowers blooming, more nasturtiums, pretty marigolds, calendula. We have a ton of peppers. If I were a pepper farmer, like for money, I would be so happy right now, because there's peppers everywhere, even up on the patio. So here we go. This plant right here is loaded in jalapenos. This one has a few. This one has big ones. Look at this. I don't know if this is Pantera or Jedi. This one is Pantera because I saw the label yesterday, but this one has really big jalapenos as well. And then I believe we start, you guys see that? See that? Yay! Believe we start to get into serranos from here. Nope, more jalapenos. Just kidding. This one starts the serranos. So we have some really big serranos too. This is the Trapeo variety, and it's huge. I didn't realize they were so big. You can see some more down here mixed in with the nasturtiums, and then we have regular serranos here mixed in with the nasturtiums. So really fruitful stuff happening in this bed. Really beautiful calendula here. This is just one plant. Look at all these flowers on this one plant. That's amazing. So the very front bed has the cherry tomatoes, and I'm gonna have to kind of walk through both sides of this bed and kind of point things out, because from the other side you can't see some of what you can from this side, and vice versa. So right here we have the sun green 4029. You can see it's quite a fruitful little plant. There's clusters of cherry tomatoes all the way, like even all the way out into the aisle here. I'm just letting it go nuts. It's not bothering me. And then we have, let me get down here. So this plant right here is the Sunset Cream of the Crop Sunset Torch. This is an F1 hybrid, and you can see it is also a prolific plant, and you can see tomatoes just growing everywhere on it. We have harvested 2 so far, I believe. Yes, 1, 2. You can see it's yellow and it's red. It's kind of hard to see the red on camera, but you can kind of see it whenever you harvest it and cut it open and stuff. The flavor of this one is okay, but we'll get down there to the other end and we'll talk about some extremely delicious varieties. Right here we have Midnight Snack, and you can see how it's starting to get those deep purple shoulders there. And that is what this plant is supposed to do. This is a hybrid variety of cherry, and it is much larger than I expected. Not mad about it though. These will be really good for salads, and then if I get a wild hair and I feel like peeling a bunch of small tomatoes, then I will turn them into canned tomatoes as well. But none of these have ripened just yet, but you can see where they're kind of starting to get their purple shoulders. So hopefully soon we'll be able to taste test that one. This one here is from my papa's last cherry tomato plant that he had. Y'all, I was just out here trellising on Monday, and I'm gonna need to run more trellis and probably install some support stakes, because these guys have so many tomatoes on them. They're just ridiculously heavy at this point, and the twine just is not giving them quite enough support. This one is always a high producer every year. I'm almost out of seeds, so I'll have to save seeds from it this year. I need to probably isolate some blooms at some point so that I can do that. But hopefully soon we start getting some ripe tomatoes. This is a larger variety, probably this big, aroundish, before it starts getting ripe. And then we get down to more traditional cherry-sized tomatoes, and we have Sakura which is a greenhouse variety. Everything is kind of, it's been really windy, so everything is kind of windblown and cray-cray right now. All right, so somewhere, let's see, there is the Sakura plant. If we could trace that up somehow, maybe this one? Nope, that's still pawpaws. It goes crazy every year. This one is the Sakura. It has a few tomatoes on it. It's supposed to be pretty prolific since it's a greenhouse producer, so we'll see. Then we get into what so far has been the tastiest tomato this year. This is Sun Gold, and these are going to be really deep orange, almost the same shade of orange as the Thorburns Terracotta. You can see we have a couple that are probably ripe and ready to pick. I'll get those this afternoon. And then we have the Sun Sugar, which is going to be a deep yellow variety. And then we have the Super Sweet 100. I have sampled this one, and this one was phenomenal. This one's almost ready, and then I'll sample that one. So we will see what the flavor is of this one, because I've never grown Sun Sugar before. All right, walking through the front now. Tomatillos. We are starting to get tomatillos at both ends. That other plant I'll show you down there is just bananas. We also have pickle bush cucumbers, and they're starting to bloom. These are a more compact variety of cucumber. They don't vine as far as traditional vining cucumbers, so that's why it's kind of a small guy and it's already blooming. We have more flowers, nasturtiums, marigolds. There might be calendula. Yeah, calendula right here. The bush beans, I've been harvesting beans all week. I have probably 3 good handfuls now, which is pretty good. I'm going to be making like a Mediterranean green bean recipe with these. You can see there's still several more that are growing. We have eggplant up here, a lot of little baby grasshoppers that I'm gonna have to figure out what to do with. So we have Listata de Giandia and Shooting Stars. Oh no, sorry, this one's Shooting Stars. This one's Listata de Giandia. And then we have the Thanos varieties of eggplants, and you can see where we have eggplants. This is a different variety of bush bean here. Again, been harvesting from them all week. So this one's almost done. Once these are done, pull them out, get some cowpeas planted in, and those will produce all the way until the first frost. So yay, future food. All right, so I'm gonna show you the tomatoes from this side now. Since I walked through and talked about every individual variety, now you can see how many cherry tomatoes are actually growing, because I'm gonna have all kinds of snacks very soon, and that makes me very happy. Now, I pulled off one hornworm yesterday from this row. I totally expect more. The middle row had 2 that I pulled off, one yesterday and one today, and then that back row where you saw that one. So we're at 4 for the count for this year so far. The first year that I grew tomatoes here, I was pulling them off by like the jar full. There were so many. Each year is less and less. So my companion planting and, you know, densely planting things really helps with that. But because I am an organic gardener and I don't use things like 7 Dust or anything like that, they do appear. And I just prune off that whole leaf set that they're chomping on and throw it all in the garbage. I could spray the plants with BT. I do have it inside, but that's a lot of plants to try to cover every inch of. So I just kind of pick them as I see them. Down here we have more pickle bush cucumbers. You can see blooming down here, and then we have dill, but look at all the tomatillos. Okay, last year I was not successful with tomatillos at all, but this year is much improved, I do have to say. So you could see there's so many. So many. They're going out into the yard whenever my husband mows. I have to come move plants around for him. So overall, things are going pretty good over here. You can see that it's very jungly and very wild and kind of unruly, but when you take into consideration how much food is coming out of there. It's really incredible. Right over here in the okra beds, a couple of weeks ago, things were looking a lot worse than they're looking now. Now, as far as how far behind they are on growth compared to the tomato patch, yes, they are still a little bit behind. However, I want to show you guys how much new growth we are getting. You can see all these little new baby leaves. That is all new growth. And what is contributing to that is I am out here applying earthworm castings and Neptune's Harvest liquid fertilizer weekly. Well, I missed last week, but last week I applied Fox Farms tomato and vegetable fertilizer. It's granulated, so it's slow release. But I have been really diligent about applying fertilizers into here to try to help boost the growth of these. What I believe happened was the compost that I added in was not quite broken down enough, and it was kind of stealing the nitrogen from the plants. So I've been fertilizing them heavily to get them some more readily available nitrogen so that they can continue to grow. So finally, the squash are starting to grow. You can see here, these bush beans, these are the purple TP bush beans. They are blooming and growing. So we have little baby beans there. And then we have dragon tongue beans the rest of the way through here. You can see the old leaves are kind of not fantastic looking, but all the new leaves look pretty good in here. We have a few blooms happening, and then more squash that's growing and doing really well. The peppers also, again, new leaves. Basil's finally starting to get some height on it. It was really stunted and not doing fantastic at all. The one thing that is still struggling is this squash plant, and I don't know why. It's getting the same treatment as everything else. Everything else is really starting to pick up speed in terms of growth, so I don't know what's going on with that, but I'm just kind of trying to baby it along, and hopefully we get some more squash. This is the partial eclipse variety, I'm pretty sure. So I kind of wanted to get that one because it's a bicolored striped squash, and I thought it would be cool. But I have another plant in the other bed, so hopefully it all works out. Let me just come back here very briefly for a second. So you can see that the okra is also starting to put on some growth as well. The thing about the okra is I planted it way too early. This month is actually the month for planting okra, and I planted it at the end of March when I planted out the rest of the bed. So, my bad. But it's slowly starting to pick up speed growing. This row that has okra kind of mixed in is the dwarf baby Bubba, something like that. And then this is other varieties. So I have 7 total varieties of okra growing within the 2 beds. The dill is finally putting on some good growth here. It's probably gonna hurry and bolt soon, but that's okay. The main purpose of the dill here was to help the cucumbers in here that aren't even growing. So what we do have is a noodle bean. I think this is the green one. We have Malabar spinach. It really should start putting on height soon now that it's warming up. A butterfly pea flower, and then a hamey melon. And there's another butterfly pea flower. Hopefully it starts putting on some height so I can just kind of train it to come over here. Sunflowers, I'm happy to report that the sunflowers are growing. If you were following along with other weekly updates, you'll know I kind of had a little bit of a struggle with getting things to germinate over here. What did germinate really well was the Sunflower Steve's marl mix. I don't know how to say it. I think it's marl. Those are the tallest, and then we have Darjeeling right here, the kind of medium height ones, and then these short ones are not Evening Sun. What are they? Velvet Queen, I believe, is what I planted here. I wrote it down inside in my journal, but Velvet Queen is what is in here. I'm 99% sure. I do have an issue currently with aphids, you can see there, but I have seen all kinds of ladybugs around, so I'm just kind of waiting for them to figure out they have the big food source right there. we can start to see the sunflower blossom starting to form in some of these. So hopefully soon we'll have some blooming sunflowers. As they fizzle out, I'll just get more seeds planted in because I have a ton, so no big deal. Over here, this bed is doing a bit better than the other bed, although the other bed is starting to catch up. So we have basically the same kind of layout, just different plant varieties, except for the squash. The squash varieties are the same. So here's the partial eclipse that is growing okay, and you can see it's starting to get the male blossoms. The female blossoms will have essentially like a baby squash formed on the bottom, like this one right here, that's a female, and this one is the male. So the male typically blooms first for a few days, and then the female will start blooming, and then you can take the male kind of part there and kind of rub it in the, you know, basically plant intercourse 101 there for you. So hopefully, you know, we start getting some squash soon from there. My dad actually asked me the other day if I was getting squash yet, and I was like, no, my squash are stunted, but maybe one day. Bush beans over here. I think this is the Blue Lake right here, just your run-of-the-mill typical green bean variety. We can see starting to bloom. Hopefully we start to see beans pretty soon. We have the camo squash here. It's the same thing in the middle of the other bed. And then we have the green zebra, maybe zucchini down there. I can't remember what it is. We have shishito pepper here, and then the rest of these are candy cane chocolate cherry peppers, and I harvested one yesterday to put in a salad, and it was delightful. I'm just kind of, these will stay kind of small, like a snacking pepper almost, so I'm just waiting for them to ripen up so that we can continue to have little pepper snacks. But you can see the okra in this bed is a little taller than the okra in the other bed, except for that one. That one I had to, these two were re-sown. So as we heat up and the temperatures continue to climb, the okra in both beds will just take off and do phenomenally. So I'm not too worried about those. I am going to continue with the earthworm casting fertilizer regimen until everything is where I feel like it should be in terms of growth, and then I'll slow down on that and kick it back to the regular fertilizer schedule that I use with the rest of the garden. Right over here in front of the greenhouse, we have the, oh man, Montana lavender clay corn, I believe is what it is called. Please don't quote me on that. It is something very similar to that. You can see it's tasseling out. We have some little tassels here, and I did come through and kind of give everything a shake and tried to pollinate each other with their neighbors, and we do have a corn cob here. We'll see how well I did at what is the word? Pollinating. We'll see how well I did at pollinating these, but these were grown just for fun. They weren't grown to try to purposely make food from. I would have chosen a different corn type. These were for fun, and hopefully we get some beauty from them. So it's the same thing in this one, the same type of corn. It is tasseling out. You can see the little baby corn there. Again, I didn't have like a friend to pollinate with this one, so I tried to use the top of this as best I could. Garlic is, it's almost ready. It's almost time to pick the garlic. I expect another week or two. In previous videos, I talked about how I hadn't seen garlic scapes yet. They're here. So this is what it looks like. You can see kind of the seed pod form right here. It comes right out of the middle of the greenery, and it eventually will kind of curl around like this. But a few of these plants do have that garlic scape action happening here. You can see 7 plants or so with that. I'm going to harvest these once I have a few more, throw them in a stir fry. I think, I'm not really sure how else to prepare them. Some of these varieties are soft neck, so they won't get the garlic scapes, the garlic scapes only occur on the hardneck varieties. So some of these won't get those. What we're waiting for at this point is for a lot of the greenery to yellow and die back like this is here. This is another one where it's like 80 to 90%, you know, kind of yellowed off, and then you can harvest. And I will be using the metal shelving unit to kind of cure the garlic and the onions. All right, let's talk about the wild and unruly flower bed that has turned into a powdery mildew jungle. Okay, so this salvia here, this is Henry Duelberg, I believe, also known as mealy sage. And I was going to cut it down because it is substantially more wild than I really wanted my flower bed to be. But I was outside on Monday, just kind of tinkering around in the garden, as gardeners do. And I had 2 hummingbirds come through, and they were really hitting these purple flowers hard. So because I'm feeding the birds, I have to keep the purple, and that's okay. Maybe once I get some more red stuff growing in here and they're more attracted to that, then I can kind of transition these out. But I wanted to leave them while they're still a pretty good food source for those hummingbirds coming through. I'm going to try to insert the video now that I got of one of the hummingbirds. All right, so I just talked about powdery mildew. I published a video on Wednesday talking about how I'm attempting to treat it. So you can see here on these zinnias, I don't want to touch it because then I'll spread it. Where it kind of looks like it's been dusted with flour a bit, that is powdery mildew. So Wednesday, I treated the entire flower bed with a solution of baking soda and water. And it looked a little bit worse today, so I treated it with a solution of milk and water. So we will see if that helped. I plan on coming back out tomorrow with more baking soda and water. If it is still looking crusty dusty, the other end looked worse today than it did yesterday, which is why I went ahead and treated it again with the milk. So powdery mildew is something I typically deal with every year. 1, because I plant the flower beds so densely, and 2, zinnias are just susceptible to it anyway. Thus, the snapdragon section, so it doesn't look like there's a lot happening, because for Mother's Day, I came through and I harvested anything that was like a pretty bloom that was left, and made bouquets with snapdragons and some zinnias and some celosia that was from the front, and some purple basil. What else went in it? Maybe that's it. I can't really remember. My days are kind of running together right now, but so we have some more that are about to bloom. So hopefully next week you guys will get to see these, because these are the Madam Butterfly series right here, these front ones, and they're so cool looking. And I'm really glad that they got to be put into bouquets because they are super cool. So you can see more of the powdery mildew issue happening. Hopefully the milk helps kind of knock it out. Can't really tell right here, but there's some zinnias down there a little bit where, you know, it was really overtaken, and I can show you guys how it progresses and turns leaves really gross looking. This calendula is absolutely going ham. I pruned it the other day, deadheaded it, excuse me, and I need to do it again. So you can see all these that are kind of spindly looking, I need to deadhead. And then of course there's some zinnias that I need to deadhead as well. But what I wanted to show you was the powdery mildew progression from down there where it's relatively mild. You can see down here it's substantially worse, and as you get to the bottom leaves, they just eventually turn brown and get crusty, and then that works its way up the plant as more and more leaves get affected. So hopefully I can get it under control. If not, I'll just cut them down. I already started more zinnias to replace them with, so I'm trying to treat them, but I have a backup plan. Cilantro. So The volunteer cilantro, you can see it's dying off. The seeds are starting to dry out. That's exactly what I wanted. I will come collect as many seeds as I can. I'm sure I'm gonna lose a ton on the ground. That's okay too. I will pull up as many volunteers as I can. I might let a couple go. As you can see, it is impeding my walkway a bit. So the sooner this finishes up, the better. My plan is to use some as coriander, the spice, and then the rest will be used as seeds for future cilantro plants. And then this end, of course, is almost an exact mirror of the other end. Zinnias, snapdragons, crazy salvia, you know, petunias, and such. But what this one has that that one doesn't have is that this one is about to bloom. And I don't know if this is the red or the black variety, so we will find out together, and it's going to be really beautiful, and I'm really excited to see that happen. But you can see more of the powdery mildew damage here, and then you can see how it kind of starts to affect the zinnia flowers themselves. I need to come out and do some deadheading, so hopefully we can get some new blooms going, but also trying to treat the powdery mildew so the blooms won't be affected. It's a whole process, y'all. It's a whole process. All right, this green stalk that had lettuce and spinach in it, I harvested it on Monday, as you can see. I filled up a 2-gallon Home Depot bucket and we turned it into salad, and it was delicious. That's actually what I'm about to go eat, is some more of the salad. So some of it's kind of trying to go back. I expect it to bolt because it is quite warm out. Same thing with the lettuce down here. I still have not figured out what's going to go in here to replace these plants. I haven't decided if I want even more cowpeas in there or if I just want to throw some flower seeds and see. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't want to leave the soil just sitting because then all of the nutrients will kind of flush out. So I don't know. If you guys have any suggestions for the leaf style green stalk, which is the shallow pocket, let me know, because again, I have no idea. Quick update on the ginger and the turmeric. None of them have germinated. There has been a lot of mushrooms that have grown up. I don't even know if the roots are still intact in there. I haven't dug in to see, so maybe, yeah, you can see the root is still fine right here. It's still there, so we'll just leave it. Hopefully now that it's warming up, they will, excuse me, hopefully now that it's warming up, they will do their job of becoming more ginger for me. Okay, I'm still calling this the pepper green stalk, even though it very obviously has more than peppers in it, but it is doing fairly well. The peppers are all doing wonderfully. The tomatoes, I'm experiencing a spider mite issue, and if you're not aware what happens when you get spider mites is spider mites are incredibly tiny, like you almost can't even see them, and they will basically form tiny little webs on the undersides of your plants, and they're carried by the wind. So because they're so tiny, it's really hard to kind of stop them from moving in, and they will just essentially suck all of the nutrients out of the leaves until they turn brown and crunchy like this. You can treat with insecticidal soap. You can also treat with high pressure water hose. Look at that, another one right there, right there, if you can see. Where is it? Right there. Right there. Rude. All right, that makes number 5. To be fair to that, there's no deterrent. There's no hornworm deterrent plants in here. There's no basil. That is a good deterrent. So, yeah, it is what it is. It's something that I'm going to be battling, and that's perfectly okay. Again, I'll just prune off this whole leaf, and then I'll just throw it in the trash. No big deal. So aside from the spider mites and the hornworms, most everything is doing really well. You can see we have peppers, gigantic cayennes, Thai red chili, jalapenos, buena mulata. These aren't quite productive yet, but they really want to be. more peppers. We have eggplants down here. These are struggling a bit. I think maybe they might have a spider mite issue, judging by the leaf damage here where it's kind of speckled and mottled. So I need to be more diligent about the high pressure hose on them. But we do have a few little eggplants there that are growing. But the peppers are doing really well, so that makes me happy. Moving on to the strawberries. They are starting to slow down on their production. I do see some blooms here, so we might get some more. I'm still harvesting about a handful a day. My husband is currently taking them in his lunch, and he says they're really good. There's not really enough to share at this point, but we do still have food growing out here that can be harvested. Lime tree, not really much to report other than, it has filled in quite a bit with leaves. Whenever I had it inside over the winter, it lost a lot of its leaves. I don't know if it's going to have any fruits this year because it did lose a substantial amount of its leaves. So if it doesn't fruit this year, that's okay. My plan is to put it in a different spot next winter where it gets more light, so that the next season we will get some limes off of it. The herb green stalk is doing phenomenally. I'm really happy with how this is kind of progressing. The chamomile, I am kind of coming off and pulling off flowers every day, 3 or 4 daily. So there's probably 3 that can come off of there today. We have another chamomile here. It hasn't started blooming yet. These two don't do too well in the heat, so they will start to fizzle out and die off. Perfectly content with that. Lavender, I harvested all the lavender spikes. Those are inside drying out with the chamomile, and I'll turn that into tea. Mint, of course, will survive the apocalypse. Not really worried about that. We have Moldalvian dragon balm here. This one I'm growing just for the pollinators. Whenever it blooms, it should make some butterflies and stuff happy. We have hyssop, which apparently makes a really good tea. We have rue, also for the pollinators. This one is for swallowtails. Tarragon, marshmallow, more mint, obviously. But doing really well. The thyme, of course. The flowers around my light poles. Oh, the flowers around the light poles is doing pretty awesome. The dog still loves pets. All right, we got summer flowers started up here. I'm not gonna move them inside with the heat lamp and all that because I'll have to move the shelf, get the lights out, the heat mats, all of that, get everything set back up. So I'm just gonna attempt to seed start from right here. Because it's so hot, I'm not gonna put a humidity dome on. I'm just going to do my best to make sure that the top of the soil stays moist. I have a spray bottle with water inside that I can just come mist the top to keep it, from getting too dried out. At this point, this is about half full with water, so that's helping as well. So I can also use that route too. But that is the garden as of May the 16th, whenever you guys will see this. It's looking pretty good, other than the hornworms trying to move in and take over, and the powdery mildew, of course. But we have a lot of exciting things about to happen within this garden. But that is all I have for you for this weekly update. If you liked today's video and you want to continue to see how the garden grows and changes, please like, subscribe, comment, do all those different YouTube things. Otherwise, until next time, go find a way to get those garden manicures. Bye!